Hello, how are we all doing? We're back again with another Sunday lunchtime stream. How is everybody out there in the chat? I can see Dave's there lurking in the background. So yeah, today we're going to be doing some weathering. So over the last week I have been painting some Sons of Horus vehicles. And yeah, the Termite is going to be a bit mucky by the end of its travel. So we're going to have a play with some weathering powders. And yeah, make a bit of a mess on this. And then if we've got time, we'll also be looking at a Zone Mortalis Tile, which I prepared earlier. We're going to be basically following the guide that I wrote over on Warhammer Community. And yeah, making that a bit messy. And yeah, should be a bit of fun. So what's everyone up to? How are you doing, Dave? Are you painting? I hope you're painting. I'll be very disappointed if you're not painting. That seems a very important thing to be doing right now. So, what we're going to do is start off with some more details on this thing now. We're going to go in with some weathering powders and make an absolute mess of this. But first of all, what I'm going to do is do a bit more localised damage and cracked paint and stuff like that. Just so we can, yeah, show the chips and the damage that this has taken as it's been drilling through and in part of the very successful Saturnine Gambit, which definitely didn't go wrong for Abaddon and his friends. So, oh, David's painting some bases. So this for your Necron army, Dave. Graying them up ready for texture paint. There we go. Awesome. How are you finding the bases? I know it's always something that you put off till the end. You're not a fan of painting bases. I feel with your Necrons you're getting to grips with the old bases. So what we're going to do here is paint some chips and damage on the drill itself. So to do that, I'm going to go in with Rhinox hide. That is going to be the kind of like lower I suppose exposed surface of the vehicle, and then we're going to go around that with Dawnstone just to show it gives the illusion of the chip paint and gives a bit of a highlight on that crack. So we're going to do this quite localised. We're not going to go completely crazy with it, just a few chips and scratches here or there. So basically where this thing's going to take damage as it's drilling up. So as this is spilling around, there's going to be rubble and stuff coming down these channels. So I feel like around this area here, there's going to be quite a few chips and scrapes, less so towards the back. And then as we're doing the weathering and all the muck later on, I think that'll all accumulate along these edges here. So we'll go in. Now I've put on some transfers yesterday. They're still a little bit glossy, but once we've done all the weathering powder, we're going to spray this with a varnish, and that should take that sheen down and hopefully stop the weathering powder from going everywhere, because that will make an awful mess. So Dave says it is indeed Plasmancer, 5 warriors and 2 crypto thralls, the good old murder buckets. I think they're some of my favourite models from the Indomitus box, to be honest. Need one of these termites for the ad mech. Looking forward to your weathering. And Jay says you need to wear stealth suit army, just the bases, as the battle suits are invisible. You know what? That's a really cool idea, actually. I'm sure I've seen some that have been cast in clear resin. You know, like the limited edition ring bearer models they did for Lord of the Rings. So yeah, so what I'm going to do, just get this consistency right. We're just going to paint in some areas where the paint has flecked off, just as the various rubble and mess has come back off the front of that drill, because I feel this is going to be quite scuffed and damaged here, just on these surfaces where it's going to hit. A lot of it we're going to do with the weathering powders, but this will just give a bit of an illusion of some of the damage that the vehicle's taken. I always quite like the weathering step, especially later on when we come to the Zone Mortalis stuff. It's really fun to just make an awful mess, because I imagine the underhive isn't going to be the cleanest place. So again, we're just going to not go completely crazy. I don't know if you can see that there. Just putting a few little chips and flakes. Just where I think this is going to get scuffed and damaged as it goes. I imagine round the doors here are going to be quite weathered. So we're just putting a little bit of Rhinox hide just to show the exposed ceramite underneath. I think I've seen those too. Yeah, I secretly I do fancy getting a Tau army on the go at some point. We've seen the crazy new Sisters of Battle suits, I guess, from the stream yesterday. Imagine what the Tau are going to get. How cool is that going to be? What did everybody think of the stream yesterday? There was some rather tasty stuff that they revealed. I'm not going to lie, I think I probably want to order everything I saw on there. The new Titan looks so cool. I really like that and can't wait to see it in the flesh. I think the thing I'm most excited about though is the new Warhammer Quest box, Cursed City. I popped an article over on Sprues and Brews day before last, I think it was, just talking about vampire counts, what we'd like to see going forward, and I am really excited to see what we get from that range, because I think that we're going to see some really cool stuff. If that's a taster of the kind of stuff that we'll get for vampires, it's exciting times. I mean, they've got the Underworld's warband as well. They look proper good. I was kind of expecting a single vampire and then some like thralls and stuff, but it looks like the Underworld's warband is lots of vampires, just a pure vampire warband. So that'll be really cool. I'm excited about that. Oh, we've got Andy Woods in the chat. How are we doing? I expect the upcoming Janitors Guild for Necromunda will have a nice clean HQ. Yeah, House of Cleaning. Jason is excited about the elves. Yeah, so this was a bit of a surprise because obviously we'd seen the kangaroo styled guys, and we got a full reveal of the fox spirit. But there's a lot of models in that trailer that we haven't seen, all in silhouette form. There's like sword masters. Looks like there's a number of different characters. I think there's a bolt thrower that's snuck in there as well, which is cool. We'd seen that mentioned in one of the AOS source books, the Wrath of the Everchosen, I think it's called. And we kind of expected to see that in the original Lumineth release, but didn't. But by our count, it's what, 11 or 12 different data sheets, we think, Jay? It's a lot. Andy said anything AOS was amazing. Dave says that Witch Hunter. Yeah, the Witch Hunter was cool with his underslung stake launcher. I mean, that's what you need when you're hunting undead in a horrific cursed city. So yeah, really looking forward. And presumably all these things are going to have AOS profiles. They did in the other Warhammer Quest games, given rules to use them in your normal games of 40k and AOS. So yeah, really excited to see what they get, because I think that's going to be really cool. Andy said the Flying Fox. I was expecting the Wind Temple stuff. All the other stuff just blew me away. Reckon about 12 different units. Yeah, I mean I think that's more than there is in the current Lumineth book. So, did mention on the Warhammer Community article that there will be rules in the Broken Realms Techless book. Now, at the minute, we don't know if that's rules for all those units or some of those units. It could well be that we see some of this now with Broken Realms, and then later on, just like we have with Slaanesh and Daughters of Cain, that a full battle tome comes out further down the line. Now, it's not been that long since the original Lumineth Battle Tome came out, so that just makes me think it might be a little bit further away for a proper book for them. But I'm sure we'll get rules for all those kits. I kind of think that Lumineth may have surpassed the Stormcast as like the poster boy of AOS. It wouldn't surprise me if they featured heavily in obviously this overarching storyline. We know Teclis is looking to put down Nagash, and yeah, if we do get a third edition at some point, it wouldn't surprise me if the Lumineth are heavily involved, because we've seen over the previous battle tomes there's quite a conflict even on the Order side. Marathia's jumped ship, but even Teclis and Sigmar have been bumping heads. So yeah, I'm interested to see where that storyline goes, because I think it could be interesting. The Broken Realms may well relate to the splintering of the various factions that we've got. Yeah. Obviously, bad things could happen and the realms themselves could shatter. That'd be really cool. Marathi is one of the best Games Workshop books I've read. Really enjoyed it. Didn't put it down pretty much since I received it. So, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to reading Teclis. I've got a soft spot for Nagash too, so I kind of hope that Teclis comes a cropper and Nagash has got some kind of cunning plan which makes Teclis' assault on him backfire spectacularly and cause a load of issues. So Jay's put together a little list of what he's got. So Dave's tempted to paint the Lumineth Warbound to Diachasm. You absolutely should, Dave. Just as a palette cleanser, something different to paint. I actually really enjoyed painting them, so definitely give it a go. And you never know, you might get a thirst for a proper Lumineth army doing that. Jay says, what, the Wind Spirit named, Wind Spirit generic. Now we don't know if there are two different ones or if it is just one at the minute. Wind Mage, Wind Chargers, Lord Regent, Alt Build, Swordmasters, Bolt Throwers, Standard Bearer, Lawmaster Hero, and Twin Hero. Yeah, that's a lot of war scores. It's a lot of kits, to be fair. I know there's a few dual builds in there that we've seen, but yeah, there's a lot of love for the Lumineth, which is really good. I like the fact that the army seems supported and it's expanded in scope since the original book came out. I think it's going to be exciting. So we've got a few kind of nicks and cracks and lines painted in here. What we're going to do now is go in with a slightly smaller brush than this and do a bit of a Dawnstone line on these, just to create the illusion of where it's chipped, just clean that up a bit. And then once we've gone around and done all that, we'll go in with the weathering powders and stuff and get this mucky looking. So while we're just cleaning the brush, let's see what's going down in the chat. Andy Wood says they'll be the first army with 2 sets of endless spells. Yeah, that's a fair point. I do wonder, have they mentioned a second set of endless spells? I don't think we've seen anything on the stream, but that'd be really cool. The Fox Spirit's got different silhouettes. Okay, cool. So, well, that follows the same pattern as the first wave of them, where we had, is it Avalanor, the named one, and then the generic mountain guy. They're really nice models as well. I'd resisted on the Lumineth for a while, but I would be tempted to put, if Swordmasters can be taken as battle line, which presumably they will be in one of the temples, I would be super tempted to do just a little Lumineth force. Lots of Swordmasters, that kind of stuff. I mean, if they did a dragon, I'd be all over it, but unfortunately we haven't seen a dragon yet. Hopefully when Tyrion arrives, we get a dragon. So, I don't know how well you can see this. I'm not sure that's in focus there. But what I'm doing is just going in with some Dawnstone just around the edges of these cracks. And it just gives them a bit of depth and gives it the illusion that it's a crack rather than, you know, just painted on iron oxide. So a little bit more of a time consuming one, and a lot of this is probably going to be covered with weathering powder later on anyway, but I find this just adds to the effect that it's chipped. So I don't know if you can see that there. Come on, focus camera. Oh, it's not having it, is it? You'll see in the finished one once we've got a bit of a wider shot on it. But yeah, just adds to the effect that the chips of paint are flaking off. I've used a similar effect on my infantry with all the various cuts and slices and stuff in their armour, and that's turned out all right. So hopefully this should look the part. Let me just move the camera a little bit, see if that improves things any better for you. How was that? Is that looking better, guys? Can you see that? I know there's a little bit of sheen from the transfers, but hopefully that's a better angle for you. Give us a shout in the chat if that's an improvement or not, and we can just move the cameras a little bit. But yeah, it's I've really enjoyed painting the Sons of Horus. Started December, I think I started painting them up, and I've been pretty much rattling through them since. I had a few little palette cleansers on the way with the Aliens board game. That was really fun to paint up, and I'm looking forward to painting the rest of them. But yeah, the aim is next couple of weeks. These should be done today, and then I've got 2 Predators to build, 5 Terminators to build. Get that all primed in the week, and another week or 2 hopefully should have all that done. Yeah, I think the time limiting factor on them is going to be building the Predators, because it's a combi resin plastic kit. They are a little bit fiddly to build compared to some of the more recent Forge World kits, because inevitably you are going to have to bend pieces back into shape and yeah, have a little bit of a faff with them. But they're really nice models when they're built. If you've not built an old Forge World kit, just be aware that, you know, they don't have the glorious coloured step-by-step instructions that the recent Forge World kits have. It is more of an exploded diagram and then a couple of detail shots. So I would recommend, you know, knowing your way around your modelling tools before building them, because you will have to use a few advanced techniques, I suppose, like filling with green stuff and heating parts and bending them back into shape, which it's a little bit intimidating at first, but once you've done it a couple of times, piece of cake. And to be fair, the Forge World guide that they put in each box that talks you through those steps are really clear and easy to follow. So yeah, I do recommend having a good read of that first if you've not built one before. I mean, like the Termite, this is a recent kit. So it had glorious colour-coded instructions, really, really nice. It's more so that early stuff, like the early Horus Heresy range, that is going to be a little bit more of a challenge to build. But they do go together fine, and they look really good at the end of it. So what we got going down in the chat. Teclis is the god of magic. Andy noticed one of the fox spirits didn't have any arrows. Interesting. I wonder if there'll be like a combat build of it. I imagine once Slanesh is out the way, we'll probably have another preview maybe and see a few more details. I don't think Games Workshop like to show off too much outside of the next release, which is fair enough, because, you know, want to get everyone excited about Slanesh first before we all get excited about Lumineth. But yeah, definitely some cool stuff on show. Andy says, what is everyone painting, hobbying today? Well, my plan is to try and get these done today. We'll get the weathering done on the stream, and then this will need to kind of just dry for a little bit before I take it outside and varnish it. Now at the minute it's currently snowing, looking out my window here, so don't think I'll be varnishing this today, but hopefully if the weather improves over the next few days, get these varnished, and then yeah, they should be good to go, ready for the rest of the Sons of Horus. So while all this stuff's drying, what I'll probably do later on is wash all the components on the Predators and then start building them. So while they're drying, I can start with the plastic components of the Predator, which is like the main chassis of the tank. I can probably do my Terminators at the same time, and then by the time the parts have dried, hopefully tonight I can start putting together the resin components, and then hopefully they're ready for spraying at some point. So should be good, should be good. Once I've done the Sons of Horus, I think really the next project's going to be Slaanesh then. So I've probably got a couple of weeks to get these done, and then just come up with a battle plan for Slaanesh. I don't know if anyone in the chat has got the new Warhammer Underworlds box, but the Dread Pageant out of that come with some really, really nice desert bases. And there's a guy on YouTube. If you look on our Twitter, I did link to the guy's example that he did in his YouTube page. I can't remember his name, Brush Studios or something. He has done some amazing sculpted desert bases. Essentially what he's done is used crackle paint on half the base to get the kind of cracked effect that you see in the tiling of the Dread Pageant. And then for the rest of the base, he has used polyfiller, other filling brands are available, and put it into dunes by using a sculpting tool and getting that nice kind of desert effect. And then you could easily add in some skulls, a bit of detail, and then yeah, he's airbrushed it up in sand colours. And then basically, similar to Peachy's video on the Warhammer TV painting guide for the Dread Pageant, lots of dry brushing, lots of sandy colours to build up the kind of sand effect, and it looks really, really nice. So so yeah, that's, if I get time once I've done these, that's what I'll be doing, making some bases ready for my Slaanesh army, because that is going to be the new hotness. And then also on Warcom yesterday, they said that the Daughters of Cain book is going to drop the same time as the Slaanesh book. So I collect both those armies, so it's going to be a busy month or two of painting, I feel. But yeah, it should be a bit of fun. So what have we got here? Bases on Crons, Dave is painting. Do you know what you're painting next, Dave? If you don't know, Dave's been doing a bit of a painting challenge since January, where he's aiming on getting a unit or a character fully based and painted each week, and he's managed to do it every week. In fact, he's done multiple units over the last couple of weeks. I think he's really enjoying painting the Necrons, so yeah, it's exciting times. Right, so we've done some chips. What we're going to go in is start going in with some weathering powders. So this is a super messy part. This is pretty much, I don't know if you've used weathering powder before, but these are tubs of pigments. That, if we open this up and give you a look at that, it's essentially just pigment. So like you get in the paint without the medium in it, that you can then apply to the model. I normally use water to kind of make it into a paint it into the cracks where I want it, and then the logic is the water will evaporate over time, leaving just the dust in place, making it look weathered. Now because of that, it isn't going to fix to the model unless you use some kind of like fixative. So if you touch it and pick it up, that dust will come off in your hands. So that's why once this is all done, the next step when it's dry is going to be a good coat of varnish just to seal that dust in there. Otherwise, yeah, it's going to make a right old mess. So now these are really old MIG pigments that I've used ages ago. Forge World did do a range, but they unfortunately stopped selling them. So I'm going to have to find if I can get any decent weathering powders anywhere, because I like these. So what we're going to use, what I found in the past is that you want to use a bit of a mixture of different powders to give a natural effect, because naturally, as this thing's drilling through the ground, there's going to be different materials in there. So we'll go with like a dark earth colour. We'll have a little bit of rust and a little bit of light earth. The sandy colours I won't really use. Mention the Dread Pageant. Might use some of these to kind of dirty up the trousers on them to give them the effect that they're kind of sand blown into them and weathering them down. So we won't need them, but what we will do is get together a bit of a mixture of these. So what I'll normally do, I get an old palette, and what we'll do is we'll just throw down different weathering powders. We'll add some water, and we will basically get that into a bit of a paste and put it into the cracks. Nice termite drill, thank you very much. Does it work with glow-in-the-dark paint pigments? I have never tried, but the principle should be the same, unless there's anything in. See, there might be a binder or something in the glow-in-the-dark paints that gives it that effect. If all that stuff, the glow-in-the-dark material, is in the pigment itself, then in theory you could do this, and you'd probably end up with, you know, the Predator from the film Predator. You'd probably get the effect of its blood by using, if it did work, and I've never tried it myself, but you should in theory get a bit of a glowing blood effect from that. So what we're doing here is just mixing a few different dusts, and fairly sparingly, because it does go a long way. Just bear in mind, don't lean on your palette, because you're going to get covered in this stuff and not going to be able to get it out of your clothes. So yeah, just add some water, and what we'll do is we'll go in with a few colours. So this is kind of a mix of all of them. We'll be going again later with a darker, the kind of dark mud colour as well. But this will work for a good start. So dead easy to use. Would advise using an old brush. This is just a brush I use for basing. It's an old knackered one. And then yeah, start putting this into where it's going to be. Now, what you can do as well is flood the area with water if you do want to go to town with it. Now, if we've got time later on in the stream, I will be showing you how I do my Necromunda tiles, which uses a slightly different technique where I flood the surface of the model with water first. I'm just going to move this camera around a little bit so you can see that a bit better. Yeah, so flood the surface of the model with water, and then what will happen is all this stuff will flow down naturally into the cracks where it would be in real life. I say real life, you know, you haven't got a termite drill in real life, but we'll have some kind of logic to that. And on here, what I'm doing is kind of focusing on the kind of indented areas let's just move this over. Indented areas to where the dust is going to settle. Now, you're not going to see how the full effect looks until it's dry, because obviously there's water in here. That's all going to need to evaporate first. And if you do get it on the higher edges, that doesn't matter, because naturally there is going to be muck and rubbish that's in there. And what I normally do to end with is give it a little bit of a dry brush of the base metal colour at the end, just to pick out some of that rubbish. So it's really going to be on these kind of rollers where the dirt is kind of settling in. And then once this is evaporated, we'll get a nice dusty effect. Now what I'm going to do is just darken this down a little bit, because I think that's a little bit light. So add some more of this kind of mud coloured pigment in there. And I'll add a bit more water. And I find it works best if you have a few different colours in there and mix it all together. Don't worry about making it neat, because in real life it wouldn't look neat. It's been drilling through the ground and yeah, making a right old mess. So put all this on here. Now it's worth noting this will absolutely destroy your brushes as well, so if you are using a newer one, just make sure you give it a good clean, because otherwise you're going to have a difficulty getting it out. That's why I tend to just use a knackered old brush, because I wouldn't want to use my expensive brushes on it, let's say it that way. Exception to that being if you want it in any controlled area. So when we come to do some on the panels, I'll use a normal brush, but I'll be using it more like a paint. It'll be watered down a lot more. So that is starting to go in. And yeah, we'll just slowly build this up over all the drill areas. Now what you can also get for these is a kind of like a resin mix. You can mix up and it will give it a bit of texture. Polyfiller can work equally well. When you mix it together, it will take the colour of the pigments and give you something a bit denser to slop in, like dried mud, and that's how it will look when it dries. We'll see you later once this is done, but I'll dig out my my shadow sword. That's used that technique on the tracks on there, and yeah, it looks pretty good. Dave says it's been underground after all. Yes, it has. It has been. So you've not read Saturnine yet, so I'm gonna have to hold fire on the spoilers. But yeah, it's certainly been underground. So let's put a bit more of this in here. We'll use a tiny bit of this one. When it's dried, your colour variation will help give the illusion of like actual mud and stuff, because it wouldn't dry this way. So Dave has just linked my my Necromunda article over on Warhammer Community, where I used some similar techniques to this. Later on in the stream, I'll be showing you how I did that following that guide. So keep that in a browser tab for later, because it's a slightly different technique that I use for that. This is a lot more controlled than in the Necromunda one, where, as you'll see later on, we flood the surface with water and then drop in different washes and powders. Now, we've already been over this with some washes. You see, we're starting to get a bit of a muddy effect on here. Now, what we're going to do is these indented areas, I feel mud and rubbish would collect in them as they would down here. So this is going to be, oops, quite mucky down here, because all this is spilling down here into the tracks. So let's just put some rubbish on here. And you really don't need to worry about being too neat with this. Like I say, it does dries the dust as well. So if you do need to fix any mistakes that you find when you're doing it, you can just dust it off later on. It's a little bit messy, but there we go. And again, once we've kind of gone around here, we'll do a similar thing in the tracks, because obviously all these tracks are going to be caked with mud as this thing is drilling through the rock. It's yeah, it's definitely one of my favourite vehicles we've seen from Forge World. I fell in love with this thing when we first saw it a couple of years ago. I think it's been out now, and I have got some Titan Guard for 40k, for Heresy, sorry. And I am tempted to do a full Mechanicus army, all embarked in these things. I think that'd be quite fun. So what's everyone else up to this weekend? Any exciting plans? I know unfortunately no one's really got any games on at the minute, but anyone tried any solo stuff? Obviously with the announcement of Warhammer Quest, we hopefully have a new game that we'll be able to play solo when it comes out. I a big fan of Blackstone Fortress. I'm kind of midway through a Blackstone Fortress campaign with my sister, so if that wasn't the case, I'd probably bust everything out and start a new single player campaign there, but I'd feel a little bit bad if I lost all our progress by taking out, you know, the characters from there. What they called the status pouches, I think they're called in Blackstone Fortress. So yeah, looking cool. Okay, so I'm starting to get these in here. Yeah, I think they're looking okay. We'll put a little bit towards the back. Just adding a little bit of rubbish there. Because I think, again, it'll spill out and settle there. Okay, that's looking good. So, I think my chat might be playing up. 2 seconds, I'll try and fix this. There we go. I may be having chat issues, I'm afraid. It looks like it's working again. So yeah, if you give me a shout out in the chat if you are hearing this. If not, I'll just talk to the void and have to ad-lib your responses. So yeah, that is the drill. Looking, oops, you can see already that's starting to dry. Oh, well, the chat is moving now. Looking forward to Quest, how they develop on the legacy mechanic in Blackstone. Yeah, that was a really cool part of Blackstone Fortress. The fact that your progress carried over from game to game, and it was a really kind of slick way of doing it by having the little kind of bags essentially for each of the characters. They could save their progress and all their items and gear and stuff that they've got. I think it was a really nice way of doing it. I think, looking at, I don't know if you've seen, but there is a Cursed City website that went live yesterday, just after the stream, and there's a few teasers in there as to what we could see. So there's mention of a number of different character silhouettes. It's yeah, similar to Blackstone Fortress. I do wonder if there'll be, you know, permanent character fatalities during your campaign. You'll need to swap them out with other characters as you go. Presumably this is going to be supported in a similar way with different expansions and extra guys to add to your party. And it looks like there's about 5 different kind of enemies that you have to fight. So one of my criticisms of Blackstone Fortress was that Obsidious Malix was pretty much always the big bad. Where it looks, from the minimal info we've seen so far, it looks like in this game there can be a number of, let's call them bosses for want of a better word, that will you know, hinder your progress towards whatever mysterious figure is in charge of this cursed city. Presumably it's a vampire, but again we don't know an awful lot yet. But that does appeal, because I do like me a vampire. So we are nearly done with the tracks here. Like I say, there's a bit of a messy job, but it is well worth it. I am going to have to seal this all in though, because this is going to get messy to the touch very quickly. Put a little bit of muck on the back of these, they wouldn't be as done. But I don't know if you can see that now. The water is starting to evaporate from it, leaving that kind of mucky mucky residue in place. So yeah, really happy with how that's going so far. Problem is, it's getting really hard to move this around without touching it. I should have got my little turntable out before starting. But yeah, I'm just going to pop in a bit more muck in there. And then what we're going to do is get a better brush. I'm going to paint some of this into those areas on the linings between the panels that we painted in with the Rhinox earlier. Again, just to simulate the effect of the dirt collecting there. And then once this is all down and varnished, we'll put a bit of Agrax back in here as well, just to kind of blend the muck and the paint together. So if we use that brush, and we'll make sure there's enough here. And what we'll start to do is just paint a little bit down into the edge of each of these panels. So what's going down in the chat? Kind of stuck to building kits at the moment with how cold it is. I can't really prime. Yeah, that is a problem with the weather at the minute. If you have got access to an airbrush, that can be a good way of getting models primed when the weather's bad. But yeah, it's definitely not priming weather at the minute, and temperature can affect how your primer behaves as well. Sometimes it can cloud and do funny things if the weather's not great. So just bear that in mind when you are priming and varnishing as well in bad weather. I certainly wouldn't recommend varnishing models when it's a bit cold outside, because it can really affect the final look of the model. Jay says yes, his chat is also playing up. Andy's in the same boat at the moment with not being able to prime models. That's a shame. But you know, I'm sure we've all got a big backlog of kits that need building, so it's a good time to get all that done. Lots of rumour engines here have been solved. The Gravedigger reminds me of a Del Toro monster. Yeah, there's a really nice kind of horror movie vibe. Like, you know, I mentioned Del Toro, so like Pan's Labyrinth and stuff. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's in here. If this is proper like classic horror as a Games Workshop board game, I think that is going to be a load of fun. You know, vampire counts traditionally in Warhammer Fantasy wasn't really what the Soul Blight currently are in Age of Sigmar. So it was, rather than being an army of vampires, it was one or two powerful vampires ruling over their raised army of minions. So I hope we see, you know, proper horror vibes here. So wolfmen, mummies, all that kind of stuff was in the old kind of Hero Quest, Warhammer Quest, that kind of stuff. I think it's going to be really fun. I can't wait to see the models properly. I really like the Gravedigger guy. I really like the Vampire Hunter, sorry. If the new vampires that we've seen in Underworlds are anything to go by, the main guy should look really good. And obviously there was, the other day, leaked on social media, a Soul Blight Gravelord vampire, which isn't actually a current kind of faction name at the moment, so that does suggest at some point in the future we may well be getting a proper vampire army, so that is really exciting. And you know, there's precedent for it as well. You know, for Silver Tower we saw the first Zangors and Carrick Acolytes, and then they were later made into a full Age of Sigmar faction. So yeah, I imagine we'll probably see the same here. If we do see some undead Gribblies introduced, they might later turn up to be in a proper battle tome or something. I think that'd be a bit of fun, and I'd like to see that. Unusually for Blackstone Fortress, we haven't really seen that. I was kind of expecting I don't know, Codex Dark Mechanicum, Traitor Guard, that kind of stuff for the Beast Men and the Traitor Guardsmen and the Negavolt cultists and stuff. We haven't seen that for 40k, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not coming. Equally, in Silver Tower, there was a lot of cool concepts and stuff that maybe didn't make the cut. So we had what were they called? The Scuttlers, the goblins with like spider legs and stuff. They weren't in the Gloomspite Gits book when it came out, which is a shame because I think they'd be really cool. But again, as we've seen with the new Warbringer Titan, it could be a concept that's been done years and years ago that Games Workshop then get out to to use for a new project. So yeah, there's lots of things that we could see, and I'm excited to see how it goes. So how are we looking, guys? How's that look? We've got some muck and rubbish on there. We've got some in the panels. What we'll probably do is put a little bit of Agrax in here just to allow it to flow a bit into the cracks and get a bit of streaks on here to make it look a bit mucky. And then we're nearly done with the weathering on this. We'll give it a coat of varnish just to seal this in so I'm not getting my hands filthy every time I'm using it in a game. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that's turning out. Now, while that's just drying for a minute, move that to one side, I'll show you how the other vehicles I've been doing look. So last week I was painting up the Land Raider. That is pretty much done now. So, oops. So yeah, she's looking alright. Again, the transfer's a little bit glossy, but the varnish should hide that. But yeah, pretty happy with how that turned out. Again, we did the majority of the base colours on the stream last week, so it was just a case of going in with the edge highlights and highlighting and washing down all those many rivets. So really happy with how that turned out. We also had the drop claw, which I'm trying not to destroy the room. And that is how that is looking. And again with this one, we used a different kind of weathering technique. I airbrushed Agrax Earthshade into the recesses just to give those kind of scorch marks and the effect of this throttling through the atmosphere. So yeah, really happy with how that turned out. So if we move this to one side, we'll just do those washes on here to bind all that together, and yeah, see how we go. So we'll just close these weathering powders. Don't need them right yet. I don't want to knock them all over the place. And we will get some Agrax Earthshade and just put a bit in here. This will cause the powders to flow again, but it should blend it all together and give a really nice effect at the end of it. So what have we got going down? The Grey Pan's Labyrinth feelings. Andy says backlog. What's a backlog? Jay says we never saw the Scuttlers. Sad face. I really liked them. I kind of hope that if we do get a new Gloomspite book at some point, that we do see them or something that represents them. I think that'd be a bit of fun. Andy Wood says, looks very grimy. Well, that's the idea. You know, this thing's been drilling through the dirt, so hopefully it looks suitably grimy. So Jay says, we were expecting AOS 3rd edition this year. Still reckon that's coming, or with new quest, Broken Realms, army expansions like Slanesh and Lumineth, it may be the year after. Yeah, so before the release, the announcement of the Slanesh book, I kind of thought that we'd see the 3rd edition of Sigmar this year. I do wonder if the release schedule for the Broken Realms books has been affected by COVID. I believe that the Morathi book was meant to come out in August, based on points values in there. So, yeah, I do wonder if maybe we'll see a Broken Realms book every quarter, and then next year see a new edition of Sigmar. You know, I think it's safe to say that Broken Realms is leading to a new edition of Age of Sigmar. I think the question is when. So, yeah, all bets are off, I think, at the minute. Obviously, even like the releases for January and February from Games Workshop have been affected by COVID. We're looking at fortnightly releases for everything. It's what I'd say. Don't look at any previous precedents of what has been released when things have come out, because I think all bets are off really with the current situation, which is a shame, but unfortunately it's just how it is at the minute with COVID and everything. It's hard to predict what we're going to get, which is exciting in a way because it means that we should get lots of nice surprises. I also think we're going to see a few heavy weeks. Things have been staggered through December and January. It means there's going to be a load to catch up at. Like with Daughters of Cain and Slaanesh being out the same week. I didn't predict that, and yeah, I do wonder if we'll see some heavy March releases because of it. I think May we've got 2 Underworld gangs. So they're factoring in the fact that I think originally they wanted the Chaos Warband to come out in January, but that is now next month. I think today we'll find out on Warcom what's next week. We do know the Blade Guard veterans are there. I don't know if maybe we'll see the Dark Angels. Drakari again a battle box alongside the Sisters of Battle. So traditionally those kind of battle boxes either have the battle tomes out the same week or at either end of it, so they'd be close together presumably. And loads of cool stuff. Slaanesh, I think they did say February, so we've only got 2 release weekends in February, I think. So yeah, it's hard to predict when we're going to get stuff. Obviously, it'll be on Warcom when they announce it, and we'll be chatting about it on the podcast when we know as well. So yeah, all very exciting. So yeah, what we're doing here is just going in along some of those areas where the weathering powder meets the surfaces, just with a bit of wash. That will cause the powder to run, but should just get a bit of a blend between them then, in theory. And yeah, this is starting to come together now. I've really enjoyed painting these. I kind of want some more termites. It was a really fun model to build, and it's really fun to paint because it's mucky and dirty. I don't think I could do one of these and not have any weathering on it because this thing's been through the wars. But she is very nearly done. We'll go in and add some highlights to these guns as well, I think. What did I use? Troll Slayer Orange. I'll have a look through in a bit to see if we can find something a shade higher than that we can just highlight them. And then I might do some purple washes for a bit of a heat haze on the back here. But other than that, I think we're very nearly done, which is cool. I quite like models that you can churn out quite quickly. There's you can cheat a little bit, but you can be quite messy with this kind of stuff. The big shout out for the Forge World transfers as well. I think they're well worth buying if you are doing any Horus Heresy stuff. The transfer sheet, which I haven't got to hand, sorry, has got loads of icons on there. So the big kind of red Eye of Horus that I've got on the side of the Land Raider, loads of bits and bobs. So yeah, it's good fun. Let's see what we've got going down in the chat. Andy Woods, it's hard to say whether the release schedule being pushed back. AOS 3 might be next year at this rate. Now, it's worth saying that Games Workshop haven't announced a 3rd edition of Age of Sigmar. This is just speculation on our part. Presumably it's coming though. We just don't know when. Now, they might surprise us all and do something a bit different. Maybe maybe there isn't a new edition as such of Sigmar, but I don't know, the way they tend to do releases is built around a kind of edition cycle, and there's lots of cool stuff that we've seen in the new edition of 40k that would lend itself amazingly well to a new edition of Sigmar, like the Crusade system. I would love to see something like that for AOS. I think that'd be some good fun. And I know the rest of the guys that do the podcast with me would be all over that too. The Chaos Warband would be great for aspiring champions. Yeah, so fun fact about those Chaos Champions, I believe that they are based on some old limited edition models from Games Workshop. I'm sure all of them are based on previous champions that we've seen. Nice little Easter egg that they do in those. Okay, so I think we're nearly there with this now. Pretty happy with that. The drill is suitably gunked up with mud now. We'll probably put some more washes in there and give it a bit of a dry brush later on, and maybe put a few more darker colours in there. Again, need to really wait till that's dried down until that's done. And then you can see there's kind of some muck and filth running down the panelling of these now, giving it a bit more kind of lived-in vibe. So I'm happy with that, and hopefully you'll agree the scratches kind of blend in better now as well. So yeah, happy with that. So we're going to have to leave that to dry for a little bit, which is why for the second half of the stream I wanted to show you weathering for another system. So obviously that's on a vehicle. It's a little bit more controlled, but still a little bit messy. What we're going to do now is show how we can apply that to something a lot bigger. A Zone Mortalis Tile. So Dave popped in a link in the chat earlier. I wrote an article last year at some point on Warcom for how to paint Zone Mortalis scenery. Now, it's really quick and easy to do. I sprayed up this tile about half hour before the stream. It's just Chaos Black. I spray Iron Hand Steel along the metal areas and over the kind of grills and stuff. I then spray Mechanica Standard Grey onto the areas. So I do a light coat with the airbrush, and then I hit it with a more kind of intense burst of the colour in the centre of the tile. So the Iron Hand Steel you'd have to substitute for Leadbelcher, but you could easily do this with just rattle cans from Games Workshop if you don't have an airbrush. Spray it black, spray over the silver. You don't have to worry about being too neat with this, because we're going to be covering it with washes and weathering powders and all sorts of stuff. Just move this camera back a little bit so you can see that. See that like that. Hopefully should look a little bit better for you. And yeah, what we're going to be doing is weathering this up. So to do that, what I do is flood the entire surface of the tile with water. I then put some shades into it, Agrax Earth shade. That will then flow and settle naturally where the water would flow, which is it gives it that illusion of proper grimy underhive. And then while it's all still wet, we'll put in some weathering powders, similar to how we did on the tank we've just done. And these again will settle into the various corners. Once it's all done, it should look a little something like this, where you can see it's a lot grimier and mucky. And then an optional step, tape off some areas and put some hazard markings in, because, you know, health and safety is important in the underhive. So I believe we are having chat issues today. Let me just refresh that and just make sure it's not something on my end. But it looks like we could be having some YouTube issues, so apologies if you are talking to me in the chat. I unfortunately can't see what you're saying at the minute, but keep posting, keep talking, and hopefully it will catch up with life and I'll be able to chat with you guys. So to start with, we are just going to flood this with water. Don't need to be very neat about this. we will just slop water on it all over the shop. You kind of want to leave it to chaos. You don't want to be too neat. You don't want to be too picky about where it goes. Now obviously I've pre-prepared this tile. Normally when I do it, I don't actually wait for it to dry. I'll do it immediately after, which is some kind of horrific paint heresy, I know, but it encourages the colours to mix together, which gives you that nice, lived-in, grubby, underhive vibe. So we learned this from, we went to an open day a couple of years ago now, I think. Time's all merging together with lockdown. And we spoke to it was Mark Bedford, who'd put together a massive Zone Mortalis board that I think had been on Warhammer TV, with a big kind of corpse grinder refinery thing in the centre of it. And yeah, we were asking him how he painted them. He said, "Oh, it's dead easy. Just spray it up, whack a load of water down, and make a mess." Now, it is worth saying, if you are following along at home, you probably want to get some paper down, because this is going to make an awful, awful mess. And it will take a long time to dry. So what I tend to do with these is doing in batches of 4 tiles at a time, because that way, you know, you can have a nice area set up where you can have them all drying and go back into them later. So what we'll do, we'll take our big brush here and we'll just drop in some Agrax and just let it flow where it wants to flow. You will use quite a lot of Agrax Earthshade doing this. You want to get a lot of this covered and get some dirt and muck in there. You can see it's starting to flow into the cracks. Don't need to be too controlled, because like here, you can see it's kind of swirling down where the gutter is. That's like exactly the effect that we want. We want this to be kind of lived in and real. Because, you know, yeah, let's face it, in the underhive, you're not really going to be wanting to eat off the floor. It's, I certainly wouldn't recommend it, let's say. So, put that on there. Pop this in here. Okay, we're starting to get there. This is dead quick, dead easy to do. It's a little bit messy, but you are going to need a bit of space just to leave it overnight. This will take hours to dry this, so just make sure you've got somewhere to set up a little area where you can rest the tiles. Okay, so we've got them going in. What we'll do now is get some powders, and we'll use similar colours to last time. The dark brown that I had, I think it was this one that I used. And what we'll do is, again, get a brush, and we just want to pop some of this stuff in. We don't want to be neat at all. It is going to all mix together and dry in the cracks. What you'll find is that it will kind of gather and settle kind of in the edges of these tiles, making it look like all the rainwater, I say rainwater, the condensed water from the underhive has gathered all this and dropped it into those areas. So yeah, we're looking all right there. For a bit of variety, you can add in a few other washes and colours as well. Don't need to worry about being neat or anything. The messier, the better for this kind of thing. All the kind of normal rules for waiting for colours to dry before you do the next one, just throw out the window. So this works equally well on the actual individual Zone Mortalis scenery pieces as well. So yeah, if you are looking to paint some of them, yeah, I'd say this is the quickest and easiest way of doing that. Certainly that I've found. I've also done an article on the gang stronghold, where they use similar techniques, but a few other bits and bobs that might be useful for you. So the kind of the white of the big water tower in that kit, and the watchtower. Yeah, they're all really nice. And what's worth mentioning on the Zone Mortalis stuff is that they're all compatible as well. Not only with the rest of the Zone Mortalis range, but with the Sector Mechanica stuff as well. So I don't know if you've seen on my Twitter, but a couple of weeks ago I painted up a Zone Mortalis mining drill, which was made up of the Genestealer Cult's drill, their unique scenery piece, and the base columns and walls set. So yeah, it's all compatible. What I would say, make sure you have a bit of a play with it all beforehand. See what fits, see what doesn't fit, because that should eliminate any teething issues. The Sector Mechanicus kind of structures are as high as 2 of the columns, so it can all be made to the same level. So gives you quite a bit of freedom with the different kind of platform supports and the like furnace pieces and stuff. All fits, which is really good. For the furnacey bits, what I would say, if you're going to be putting it on a Zone Mortalis tile, you might have to just cut in some ridges on the bottom of it so it locks and locates on it. The walls and columns and the gang stronghold already lock onto those quite well, so you don't really need to be worried about doing that. But for the Sector Mechanica stuff, it isn't going to fit exactly on these tiles, even though it's the same height. So you might have to just watch. Maybe either, if you're fixing it to the board, you could cut off some of these lock-in nubs where the piece goes. Alternatively, yeah, if you can just cut the kind of correct nubs at the bottom of the piece, that'll fit as well. To be fair, if you're not locking it, it will sit on top of them. It might just rattle a little bit, so you just need to watch that. For my mining drill, what I've done is glued it all in place, so it didn't really matter anyway. The stuff built on top of the the Zone Mortalis pieces fit on top of that just fine, so don't need to worry too much about getting all that to fit. But yeah, so that is a quick job, and already we've got some nice grime and muck and ooze on there. So yeah, dead easy to do them. You can paint your Zone Mortalis bases using the same technique. What I would say though, for my Necromunda models, I tend to just super glue them onto a spare base, paint up all the bases separately, and then once you finish painting the models, snap them off the spare base, and then you can just stick them onto the bases that are going to match your board system. That's not a bad technique for most models anyway, especially if you're doing elaborate bases. Like a lot of the Warhammer Underworlds models come with really nice elaborate bases. If you're doing stuff like my Deathcore Krieg, where we've got trench bases, they again were all done in a similar style with the model stuck to a base. Make all the bases separately and put them together. It's exactly what I'm going to be doing with my Slaanesh as well. I am going to do a load of bases, do them sand style, and yeah, hopefully should look good. Ooh, we've got action in the chat. I do apologise, guys. I think we are having issues with the chat today. But Jay says, I was thinking the other day I'd like to do Zone Mortalis Tau style, like the inside of a Tau spaceship for a 40k game. Okay, that could be really cool. You're thinking some like custom walls and stuff then, Jay, or more so the painting style of the board itself? I mean, either of them sounds really, really good. So yeah, what we need to do here, because that is pretty much done, we might go back in and add some more details once this has started to dry, but just to show you how quick it is to do the weathering on these tiles. I mean, including spraying the base, the actual tile itself, half hour tops maybe. So what I'm going to do is just get a bit of cardboard that I can stick on my table behind me, and then this stuff can rest without destroying everything, because the water is going to flow around on here. So just bear that in mind when you're doing it yourself. Just make a nice area for this to live. And we'll just move that out of camera shots and just let that dry, because that is going to be wet for a long time. So what I would say when you're doing them, just batch them up. I tend to do all of the tiles at the same time, all the columns and walls at the same time. It makes it a lot quicker, and we have actually got time to maybe show you how I go about doing the actual painting of those tiles as well. So for the last part of the stream, I might just share how we do those Zone Mortalis tiles. This still needs a little bit of drying time. So I think what I'll do, I'll grab a Zone Mortalis tile and show you exactly how we put on the paint on that, prepping it ready for the step that we've just done. Jay says, like the inside of a Rebel Alliance cruiser. That is crossing the streams right there. Sounds a cool idea though. So we can put this over to one side again to dry. And bear with me 2 seconds while I grab a Zone Mortalis tile. And as if by magic, here's what I prepared earlier. So, really, really easy. Like we said earlier, you can do this with rattle cans, but with an airbrush, it doesn't take any time at all. So we will get our airbrush ready. So if you watched last week's stream, we're having a bit of a play with the airbrush to paint up the tanks for the Horus Heresy stuff. Similar principle here. Now we're only going to be using 2 colours, which is not many at all. So just sorting out my airbrush, making sure it's all moving okay. I would always check that all your components are moving okay and it all works fine before putting any paint in it, because it's a lot easier to fix it and strip it down when it hasn't got a cup full of paint, because that's just going to make it really hard to manage it. So we will start with silver, and the silver we're going to use is Iron Hand Steel. That will go down on all these kind of edge pieces, all the kind of the lock-in nodes for the walls and these vent pieces. That will all be silver, and then we'll go in with Mechanica Standard Grey on these actual individual bits. We'll do kind of like a light coat over it all, and then hit it in the centre with a kind of more intense burst of it, just to give the illusion of lighting. It makes it a lot easier to kind of make out the different tiles as you go in. So we will kick off with some Iron Hand Steel. So as we mentioned last week, I always tend to use a drop of Flow Improver just to make the brush run a little bit better. So we'll pop that in there, and then we will pour a little bit of Iron Hand Steel into the cup of the brush. Again, I might move the camera around a little bit while we're doing this, just so you can see what we're doing. We won't need masses of this. Now, other paint ranges do have dropper bottles, which some people find a lot easier for mixing paints. Game Touch ones don't, so your options really are to dump the paints in directly from the pots and just be a bit controlled, or use a brush to transfer it. Now obviously you will get wastage in both of those, so it's whatever works best for you really. And like last time, we'll just check the airflow, and already my brush is jammed there, so we'll just release the knot. It just got a little bit stuck, the needle there, so hopefully we should be okay. Guaranteed my airbrush plays up when I'm alive. It was working like a dream earlier. So there we go, and it is flowing. And that is exactly why I'd always do it on a bit of scrap paper first, because you don't want to point this at here and then it just yeah, spits out paint, because that's not good for anyone. And so, apologies if this is a little bit loud. I'm going to move the camera a little bit just so you can get a better shot of that and hopefully drown out the compressor a little bit. But yeah, you do not need to worry about being too neat here. We're just going to hit the lines, the edges of each tile, this entire block here with the silver, and we'll just work our way around with all that. It takes no time at all. So you could do this by hand. It is going to take a little bit longer though. So if you don't have an airbrush, I would probably advise just get a can of Leadbelcher and a can of Mechanica Standard Grey, and you'll be able to do the same effect using that. You'll have a little less control than I've got here, but you'll still be able to get the same effect. And then yeah, if you just follow the step-by-step guide that I've done on Warcom, you'll be able to pick all this up really quickly. I use the same scheme on the actual Zone Mortalis walls and columns as well, because yeah, I find it blends it all together. It means that I can put all these different scenery pieces in whatever configuration I want. So that's myself. Most of my Zone Mortalis stuff I do leave in sub-assemblies. It just means that you've got more options on your layouts, how you put it together. There's some really nice kind of like bespoke kind of stuck down tiles. You can get a really nice effect by doing that. The only downside is that you are going to you're going to have to store it all. In the chat, so Luke Carter, hey Matt, been looking forward to one of these tutorials as I have a pile of terrain to paint. Hi Luke, how you doing? So yeah, this is impromptu last half of the stream Zone Mortalis tutorial. What I probably will do is put together a proper guide to this over on the YouTube page, but hopefully this should give you an idea. We'll probably have enough time once this is done that I'll go through weathering this immediately after painting it as well, and then maybe in a future episode we'll do some of the actual Zone Mortalis pieces as well. But yeah, it's really quick to do with airbrush, just as quick with a rattle can. It is going to take you a little bit longer with a paintbrush, but it is doable, so don't let that put you off. And really what you're doing here is just getting the hint of these metal areas. Now, health and safety shout out. Really should be wearing a mask while airbrushing. I've got pretty good ventilation in here, so I'm not. I would, for your own health and well-being, recommend wearing a mask if you are airbrushing in an enclosed space, because it can be quite abrasive on your lungs. So yeah, just make sure you're in a well-ventilated environment when you're doing it. So we've got the silver down. We've got a little bit of silver left in the pot of here. So what I'm going to do is just grab a couple of Zone Mortalis pieces, just so I can show you how to do these at the same time. So, we'll grab a couple of these. And what I find with the airbrush, if you've ever got paint left in your cup, rather than waste it, you may as well just paint any bits that you've got primed ready to go. Now these have sat here for a little bit, so just a little bit dusty. So just going to wipe that off before we get going, because otherwise the dust will stick to it. And again, same concept. We're just going to spray the silver areas. You don't need to worry about being neat here, because the effect that we're going for is mucky, filthy underhive. So on these pieces there's a few metal areas. I tend to just pick those out with the airbrush. Again, don't need to be too neat, because we're hitting the rest of it with the Mechanica Standard Grey. But yeah, you could probably rattle through the contents of the Dark Uprising box in a day by just painting them up like this, and they turn out pretty well. So put those up there and put those up here. Again, another option that you can have is wear a set of gloves when you're doing this. You're not going to get your hands covered in paint, especially when it gets a bit messy in a little while. And yet a little bit of paint goes a long way. So you've seen we'll be able to do a tile there, we'll be able to do a few of these wall pieces. So again, while we've got some paint left, we'll carry on and do a few more of these wall pieces. What I'd normally do is do like all the tiles in one go. I haven't got enough space set up here, because I'm only going to do the one of them on the stream. So that's why I'm just going to use the rest of this paint just on a couple of these, rather than waste the paint basically. And again, we're just getting the impression of the silver in here. We're not worrying about being too neat on these, because yeah, we don't really need to be. And the final one. So apologies if people are trying to chat. Looks like we are having some technical issues with the chat today. Seems to be an issue on YouTube's end. It seems to be really sporadic messages not getting through. So I do apologise if you are trying to chat. I'm not ignoring you. I just can't see your messages. I've always a message from Jay to say that his messages aren't coming through. So alas, I think it's a YouTube issue rather than ours. I will try refreshing the chat after I've cleaned this brush through, but I do think it's on the YouTube side, unfortunately. Hopefully the stream's still working okay, and you can see what I'm doing now. And yeah, so next up we are going to just move these out of the way a little bit, and we're going to paint the Mechanica Standard Grey areas on this tile, which is going to be the bulk of the piece. So we're going to use a fair bit of paint to do this. What I would say, always have some toilet roll on hand, just to clean out your copy of your airbrush, clean your needle and everything. Makes it a lot easier when you're swapping between colours. So just scrub that out there. And yeah, we'll pop the next colour into the pot. So again, we'll put a little bit of flow improver in, just to help the paint flow through the airbrush and not get stuck on the needle. If you try and keep it to short controlled bursts, it's less likely to do that. If you're doing long bursts with the airbrush, then the paint will dry the needle and you have issues with spluttering, and yeah, it's a bit of an arcane art sometimes gauging how the airbrush feels. You need to make sure the machine spirit's satisfied. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of this in the cup. It's probably enough there. We might need more of that as we go, but we'll see. Again, if your range uses dropper bottles, then it can be a lot easier. Ooh, what have we got here? There we go. And again, as before, just get the flow of the airbrush going on a bit of paper first before you start doing it on the actual tile, otherwise you might get some spluttering and the like. So if we grab this over here, we'll just try and refresh the chat, but I do think it is YouTube side rather than our side. So I've just refreshed it. If anyone wants to try and say something, hopefully that appears in the chat, but yeah, it looks like it's not playing today, I'm afraid. So again, yeah, so this we're going to do this in a similar way to how we did the silver, but we're going to start with a lighter coat of grey over the entire square. I don't know if you can see that very well there. And then we hit it with a lighter one in the centre, just to give an illusion of light shining on the tile. And we'll go around each of these tiles doing the same thing. And what I'll do, I'll hit the centre of it, I'll also hit the surround, and the silver will still show through. Let me move the angle of this camera, you might be able to see a little bit better then. So, there we go. Andy Wood says, I love Gargants. It looks like the chat may be working again, hopefully. Yeah, I don't know what's up with it today. It's not cooperating. So apologies, I'm not ignoring you. And filling dead air with rambling because, yeah, I can't see what you're saying, unfortunately, guys. Apart from Andy loving Gargants, which is something else is on my painting list. I got 2 Mega Gargants for Christmas, so I'm really looking forward to painting those up and getting them on the battlefield. I really want to play a game of Warhammer. I've missed not playing Warhammer over the last however many months it has been. Here in the UK we had a short break in lockdown mid-year, but unfortunately I think it was the day after the Sons of Behemat release that we went back into lockdown and we couldn't do battle reports anymore. I know some other channels have still been doing battle reports, presumably because it's their, it's their job. We just do this as a hobby, not a job, so we can't really justify doing battle reports on the stream because it's just, I don't think it's worth it. It's not safe, so we'll be back doing battle reports and stuff at some points. And with these practice streams and stuff that we've done, I think what we'll do is a lot more live battle reports as well. I mean, what's everyone's thoughts in the chat, if the chat's working? Do people enjoy the live battle reports? Do you prefer the kind of more edited, the more edited battle reports that we tend to do in the past, like the Slanesh one that we did? I think it's one of my favourite ones we did. Problem with those battle reports is that they take a lot of time to edit and film. It takes pretty much a whole day to film a battle report in that way, and then I need to edit it afterwards. Where a more raw battle report, we can have it live right here on YouTube. So I think that's probably what we're going to look at doing once we can, because it means that we're going to get a lot more content out. As soon as a new battle tome or army book's released, we'll be able to play a battle report live on YouTube and show you the new units and stuff straight away. So I think that's yeah, it's not going to look as pretty as some of my edited battle reports, but you'll have it a lot quicker, and yeah, we'll be able to have interaction in the chat if the chat's working. So yeah. But yeah, you get the idea here. We're just slowly building up these colours of the tiles. Don't need to worry about being too neat here, because again, we're going to obscure a lot of this with washes and grime and rubbish. So Jay says, I've been really missing playing games. I want to get the elves on the battlefield and also my ultramarines and Tau. Yeah, ultramarines, eh? I think Jay is excited about the heavy intercessors as well in the kill team box. They look really good. Andy says, I really like the live reports, in caps. Cheers, Andy. We've only done the one so far, Sons of Behemat, so I'm not sure how the live content displays on here. You should see it. 2 or 3 videos down from this one where you're looking right now. So yeah, after we finish this and you fancy watching me and Dave fight, then yeah, you can see Uruks versus the Sons of Bahamut, which is a really fun battle report. They did 1,000 points. This was the day the book went up for pre-order because I had a Mega Gargant ready. Plus 3 Man Crushers. So there's literally use all of the giants I've got and we'll get a video together. And it was great fun. We were both a little bit rusty on Age of Sigmar because we haven't played it for about 6 months with lockdown. But yeah, it was really fun seeing how the Mega Gargants work in combat. Jay says, I really like how Andy can't use a keyboard. Andy says sad face. Oh well, it looks like chat's working again now, so that's good. What's everyone's favourite thing from the stream this weekend then? I'm torn, I really am, because I loved everything that they showed off. The Titan was very impressive. I did enjoy that, and I really like the Sisters of Battle kind of power suit things. They were cool. Looking forward to seeing some more details of the Cursed City. The trailer was super exciting, and there's a few kind of hints to what we might be getting on the Cursed City website. So it talks about like a corrupted Sylvanus Wood and various foes that we might encounter. Been playing a lot of Demon Souls on the PS5, and it does kind of remind me of that as well. I assume the big bad's a vampire in Cursed City as well. Hopefully leading to the release of the vampires getting a Age of Sigmar army. So that excites me. Jay says we need to do Giants versus Dwarden. Gotrek wins that fight. Gotrek and his dispossessed forces versus 3 Mega Gargants and the Gargant followers. Yeah, oh, I don't know. I reckon Gotrek could give the Gargants a run for their money. It'd be a good bit of fun, that. So, we've nearly got the base colours down here. Again, didn't take too long to do. Very, very quick. And the best part is you don't really need to be worrying about being neat on this because we're going to be covering it with all the wash and grime in the world. So, again, we've got a little bit of paint left, so we're just going to hit some colours on the columns and walls. I say columns and walls, I've only got walls. And same principle, we're going to hit the kind of the core of it in a kind of a lighter shade. And it seems my airbrushes just need a little bit of adjusting there. So yeah, we're going to hit the bulk of it with a kind of a light layer of it, and then layer it up further where the light's going to hit, so along the edges of the pieces in the centre of the tiles, that kind of stuff. So I'll put my airbrush back together. We'll start putting these down. There we go. So again, really quick, dead easy to do. If anyone has been like intimidated painting scenery, just practice on some You know, a lot of these kits have got spare bits of wall and little accessories. You can always, if you're not feeling too confident on painting it, practice on those bits first. But you see here, I kind of hit it all with a kind of a thin shade of it, and then focus the highlights where the light's going to hit. And just using one colour, you kind of get the illusion of it being highlighted already. Make it really quick to do. So Luke says heavy intercessors and the vampires, even though I don't collect Sigmar. Yeah, I can see the vampires getting a lot of people. Oops, the vampires getting a lot of people into Age of Sigmar. I think they're going to be super popular. I know we had the Legions of Nagash, but I think a proper old school vampire camp style army would encourage a lot of people to play Age of Sigmar. I think well, I know already in our chat there's a lot of people who want to do vampires just because they look really cool. So yeah, I'll definitely be jumping on that bandwagon as well. So you see there, walls are coming on again, dead easy to do. Mark, how you doing? Hi guys, vampires are nearly making me pull the trigger on Underworlds. Do it. Underworlds is a great game, and it's not expensive either. If you know, you can buy just a warband, the cards in the starter set, and be able to play the game. Now, on a super competitive level, you may want cards from other warbands just to give you more options, but unlike some other kind of like collectible card game style things, you can have fun just using the stuff out of the base set. So I'd certainly give that a go. Curse City looked awesome. Let's hope GW Minis enough, because I think it'll sell like... Oh, make sure GW makes enough, because it'll sell like Indomitus. Yeah, I've got a feeling it's going to be super, super popular. With all the stuff like that, I would always recommend getting your pre-orders in ASAP, because they do tend to run out. Now, Games Workshop, they want to sell models, so I'm sure they will try and make enough for everyone to buy. If they do sell out, I can see them doing what they did with Indomitus and doing a made to order, because let's face it, Games Workshop made money from selling models, so it's no good to them if you can't buy it. But yeah, I'm fairly sure they're going to make enough to meet demands, because I think it's going to be a popular release, especially if we're still in lockdown. The Warhammer Quest games are quite unique in that you can play them by yourself. So we certainly have plans, if we can't play in person, to do some remote Curse City when it comes out. Now, we obviously don't know when it's out, and we don't have any insider details. You're gonna have to go for Warcom for that. But we have plans to perhaps stream some Curse City on here when it comes out, because I think that'd work really well. We could even have the chat deciding the fate of characters. I think it'd be a bit different. Right, and I've run out of paint, so we will cut that there. I will clean this airbrush, and then we'll go in and we'll weather the second tile just to show you all how that looks again, going straight on the colours that we've got, and then yeah, they'll be ready to leave to dry, and then yeah, nice rapid fire tiles done, ready for your games of Necromunda. So yeah, no time at all to do those. It's quite satisfying churning those out at a fair rate, and the same techniques can be done on other scenery kits. So there's been some of the Warcry scenery kits, done in a kind of green kind of spectral colour. So you could equally do the same technique as this on them. Maybe if you wanted like bone colours, like on the Shattered Dominion tiles, same effect works. Obviously, just sub out Carrick Stone instead of Mechanica Standard Grey. So yeah, there's lots of options. Apologies for the noise in the background. I'm just cleaning out the airbrush at the minute. One thing to get in the habit of doing if you have got an airbrush is just make sure that you give it a good clean at the end of each session. It just stops the paint from jamming it and makes life a lot easier. So while I'm faffing with the airbrush, let's see what's going down in the chat. Jay says the Lumineth reveal were my favourite too, but Cursed City was a close second. Yeah, I think a lot of people enjoyed Cursed City. What are your thoughts on the heroes we saw for Cursed City, Matt? A Wood Elf and Ogre looks interesting and unexpected. See, I'm not convinced it's an Ogre. It's a big beefy guy. Maybe, oh, I don't know, a demi-ogre or something. He looks cool. I mean, I know Andy would be up for an ogre to navigate through the Cursed City. I think he would enjoy that. In fact, he says, does somebody say ogres? Yeah. Mark says, yes, definitely think the solo aspect of Cursed City will be a big selling point. Andy says, haha, funny noises. Yeah, apologies. It's the old airbrush being cleaned. So we'll just clean out that, and then what we're going to do is start weathering up that tile we've just painted. So yeah, dead quick and easy painting up this Zone Mortalis stuff. I really enjoy doing it, to be honest. I hope we see some more kits that expand out the range. Obviously, we've seen the gang stronghold, so maybe we'll get some other pieces for this range, because I just like painting it. What's also really cool, and I think it's sculpted by the same guy who, I do apologise, the name escapes me right off the top of my head, did the Adeptus Titanicus modular scenery as well, and that is really, really nice stuff. It kind of goes together like stickle bricks, so you can leave it all in sub-assemblies and you will be able to put it together in multiple ways, which is really cool. I like it when they make kits like that, so you don't have to put it together in one like stock layout if you don't want to, because you know, people haven't necessarily got the space to have a big bespoke setup built all the time. So being able to break it down into smaller components and yeah, build it in different ways is really good. So I'm going to move this stuff out of the way a little bit, and we'll grab the tile that we've just painted. And yeah, we will do the same technique again. We'll get a load of water on here, drop in some agrax, some weathering powders, and that will be 2 Zone Mortalis tiles and a termite done on the stream. I think that's fairly good going. So let's sort out all this. And again, the water we've got is quite mucky at the minute, with weathering powders and agrax and all sorts in there. That is fine. We can just slosh that straight on, and it is going to add to the effect. So again, if you weren't watching us earlier, we are just going to be weathering up some Zone Mortalis tiles. So what I do is slop some water over the entire tile, and this will kind of replicate the effect of natural water running into the nooks and crannies of here. It's a dead simple technique, but it turns out looking pretty well. And it's great if you want to get a load of these done in a short space of time, because you can just slop all this on, get all the colours down, wait for it to dry overnight, and yeah, job's done. So yeah, let's pop this on here. Ooh, my chat is being silly again. I do apologise with the issues with the chat today. I think it is on the YouTube side. We've not had these issues there before. I don't think it's on our side. So yeah, very sorry about that. If you are talking, it isn't working. Oh, Jason has added a link. I think that may well be the Zone Mortalis painting guide. So if you head on there, all the steps will be on it. You can do it without an airbrush, like I say. If you get the base colours down with rattle cans, absolutely the same effect. So we've got water down over the entire tile. This is a little bit messy, so just make sure you've got a protective surface down before you do it at home. And then we're going to get some agrax with a big brush, and we're just going to drop it in. Don't need to be too controlled or neat. We'll just leave it to chaos to make that run into the recesses. You'll use quite a lot of agrax doing this, but I find it adds to the effect. And this is, I think, the easiest way of painting these tiles quickly. Now you do need a little bit of space. When I did the initial batch of, I think I did 8 tiles in that initial article, I used pretty much the kitchen floor with a load of paper down and just batched them all down there. Like here on a desk I could probably get 2 side by side tops. I think this does lend itself to doing them all at the same time. It makes it a bit quicker, and yeah, you're going to be messy and playing with washes and stuff anyway. So as you can see, we just put these down random spots. It will naturally draw into the areas where the water's running. You can throw in some more water if you want to get a few more kind of flowing effects in there. A few more drops and stuff. That is all fine. Okay. So then the next step is get some weathering powders. So I use a dark kind of like muddy brown, and then we pop that onto here. So we use an old brush. We'll load it up, and what we'll do is essentially dump this into the mixture of wash and water and grime that we've got. And then the way the weathering powders will work is the water will evaporate, and it will just leave the dust of the powders on the surface, which is a really quick way of getting these. I'm just going to add a bit more water on this because I want that a bit grimier. A dead quick way of getting these tiles painted and looking suitably mucky. You can go in and add some additional details before you get to this step. So if I show you one of my pre-prepared tiles, on this one, before I've gone in with the powders and washes, I've put some masking tape down to get some hazard stripes, and then as you can see the grime and muck and yuck will then go into that and stain that a little bit. So that's what it looks like when it's dry. It does take a little time to dry, so don't rush that. Just leave it to dry naturally. You'll get the best effect. I've not tried using a hairdryer or something to dry it a bit quicker, but I imagine that would cause the colours to shift, and I don't think you get quite the same effect as leaving it to dry naturally. Because this is entirely flooded with water, all this powder is going to, over time, draw itself into these edges of the tiles. Like you can see in this one down here already, it's starting to like collect, giving you the nice mucky effect that you want from the underhive. Owen Patton's the guy who did the Zone Mortalis scenery. If you ever get if events are a thing again, make sure to give him a shout at an event, because he is some kind of sorcerer at making scenery. And yeah, I'm a big fan of painting scenery, and have to say that the stuff that GW is putting out at the minute is phenomenal. It really is. So impressed with how good the scenery ranges are, and dead easy to paint as well. You know, scenery kits seem like big intimidating kits sometimes. You can easily do them by getting some base colours down, going to town with a dry brush. If you've got an airbrush, brilliant. That's going to make life a little bit quicker. But even just a big dry brush. So all my kind of like 40k scenery I did with one of these big scenery brushes and just dry brushed them before I had the airbrush. Took a day just frantically dry brushing bits. I quite enjoy it, and then you can go back and add in the little details and bits and bobs on there. If we do see a new edition of Sigmar, I hope we see some kind of new scenery kits. I'd love to see a reimagining of the Empire buildings that we had in Warhammer Fantasy. They're some of my favourite buildings, and they still stand up nowadays. So I'd love to see something like that reimagined. We should have got that silver there, so what we'll do, we can hide that with a bit of weathering powder. Cool. So yeah, and that is essentially the principle of how I paint my Necromunda scenery. Make a mess, get a load of water on there, flood it with Agrax, and then drop in the various weathering powders into it. I've just used a dark brown. You could put some like rusts maybe on the metal areas. In the second article I did covering the gang stronghold, I also used Typhus corrosion and Riser rust on some of the more rusty areas, just to give that a bit more something to mix up the textures and the colours, because I felt that the gang stronghold would have a bit of a different colour and feel to it than the rest of the Underhive. Just breaks it up a little bit. I mean, you don't have 16 identical tiles like this. So yeah, super looking forward to getting some Necromunda games on, because that's what's really kind of motivated me to get some colours down on these Necromunda tiles. They are fun to paint. So if you've not painted scenery, you've put it off, or you don't feel too confident about doing it, just give it a go. Throw some water on, throw some washes on, see what happens. That's the worst that can happen. Especially for like Necromunda and stuff where it wants to be filthy and grimy like this. So yeah, hopefully that's helped you guys. I know a lot of people have been asking for me to do a video on this for a long time. What I might do is edit this live one and put it together as a kind of tutorial, if people do want to watch how I paint my Zone Mortalis stuff. But yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed that today. Apologies again for the really erratic chat. It seems to be going up and down all day. I think that is on YouTube's side rather than ours, unfortunately. But yeah, so that I'm now going to wait for 24 hours for this to dry until I can do some more work on them. And then yeah, next week we've got a little bit of change in the show. So from next Sunday, this Sunday lunchtime stream is sponsored by Instar. We will be painting some non-GW models on that stream, using their range of paints and learning out the different techniques and stuff that we can do with them. And then every other Wednesday, after the Warhammer TV stream, we'll be streaming here, painting Games Workshop figures using the full range of paints that I've got. So we wanted to have one show focused on kind of lesser known miniatures and models, stuff to paint for fun as palette cleanser. So stuff like the alien stuff that we painted a couple of weeks ago, we'll have on that show. And then the other show, I'll be painting my Sons of Horus, my Slanesh army when that arrives. Yeah, so I thought we'd break it up by having a couple of different streams on the go covering different things. So if you haven't got any feedback on that or anything you'd like to see us cover on the show, just let us know, because I think it's going to be quite fun painting a few different bits, but I still wanted to have the Games Workshop stuff on here as well, so we thought that a Wednesday show after Warhammer TV, because let's face it, I don't want to be clashing with those guys. We'll have a few more different things to paint and look at, and we'll still keep with the kind of airbrushing and weathering powder tutorials on there as well. We'll probably have them more so on the GW stream on a Wednesday. So yeah, so that is all from us today. Hope you guys have enjoyed the show. It's been fun doing these. It's definitely encouraged me to do a bit of hobbying at a weekend and rattle out some stuff. So yeah, until next time, we'll see you later, guys. Hope you have a good weekend.